An awards speech reportedly censored. Another fiasco involving Looney Tunes. The OpenAI CEO problem resolved. Microtransactions head to Sony cameras. An adults-only app for Nintendo 64 games. And a big lawsuit involving phone cases. This and a whole lot more taking over the headlines of the past 7 days. I'm Jason Grewa, and welcome to The Fresh Wire. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to another episode of The Fresh Wire. I'm your host, as every Tuesday evening or so, Jason Grewa. Hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and of course, Cyber Monday. I was able to buy up a bunch of different gifts, including a few things for myself. Finally got a nice little camera, a spare camera, in case, smartphone quality doesn't count. It was a pretty good sale. And also, it hasn't arrived yet, but I did also buy the MetaQuest 3. It wasn't exactly a sale or anything. I know it includes like a free game that's coming soon, but I figured, screw it, I'm going to buy the MetaQuest 3. It's finally time. And what's also finally time is a big return for Miami Dolphins, if you're a Dolphins fan. Let's go Dolphins, let's go Fins. Big win Friday, Black Friday last week. First NFL Black Friday game. It was definitely a game that existed. Nice one for Dolphins fans. And for the Jets fans, I don't know if there's any Jets fans left, but honestly, sorry. That was pretty brutal. But Dolphins fans, let's go play the Washington Commanders Sunday, and I am very excited. I will definitely be watching. Maybe I'll just make this a new segment, a Dolphins catch-up, because it, fantastic stuff. Also, the current time I'm recording this is 5:31 p.m., November 28th, 2023, and the reason why I'm recording it a few hours earlier than usual is because Hard Knocks releases at Tuesday, 9 p.m., surprisingly a reason for me to keep my Max subscription at least a little longer, and I'm extremely excited. So I want to watch that rather than watch it and then do my podcast a little later than I normally would, around 9 p.m., but now it'd have to be 10:30, 11 p.m. So doing it now. Hope you all understand. Also, this week's episode, I'm hoping is going to be a little shorter than usual. Less has happened in the past week, probably because of the Thanksgiving break that many possibly developers and the film industry and video game industry had a little bit of a break, so not a whole lot happened, but I'm going to start off with something that's very big. I normally don't go into politics for my podcast. I understand it can be very dividing. I want to focus on technology and entertainment, but this was a very interesting situation that happened, and I don't know a whole lot on it, but I figured I would have to cover it. It actually happened, I think, last night. It is the Gotham Awards. So it's kind of like a different take on, movie awards, giving it out, movie awards. It is around that time of the year that incredible films start to receive their awards. And this one in particular, the Gotham Awards, there was a big debacle that happened involving Robert De Niro and the film Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, he's a phenomenal actor, and Killers of the Flower Moon was an absolutely fantastic film that I watched around the time that it premiered, Apple being the producer of the film. Surprisingly, not an Apple TV exclusive. Luckily, this was a fantastic theatrical film, as Martin Scorsese normally produces. However, at the Gotham Awards yesterday evening, there was a speech by Robert De Niro that seemed to have been edited without the consent of the actor. This is I'm talking about an exclusive that released on Variety.com, and I'm going to try to condense it a little bit from the article that I'm reading right here. The actor of Killers of the Flower Moon went to take up the stage preparing to slam former President Donald Trump, but he then discovered his speech was altered at the behest of the film's producer. Apple, the company, was reportedly responding to feedback from the filmmaking team that wanted the actor's remarks to be centered on the movie, according to a source. Robert De Niro was not informed, as it took out any mention of the former president, so he criticized the award show and Apple. He said, quote, "I don't feel like thanking them at all for what they did. How dare they do that, actually?" This is all reportedly according to sources with knowledge from the Variety article. I'm just trying to condense it a little bit, but of course I'm staying accurate to what the article is saying. A revised version was delivered less than 10 minutes before the event started, according to sources with knowledge of the show. A woman who told the teleprompter operator to upload a new speech overheard identifying herself as an Apple employee. It omitted explicit references to Trump, instead having De Niro reference how, quote, watching the news today, unquote, makes it clear that, quote, we actually are living in a post-truth society, unquote. Very interesting. Very big change. I'm certain it's to minimize controversy, although I feel like that would probably cause controversy itself, saying we're in a post-truth society. Everything causes controversy. So, a source close to the film denied that there was any censorship involved and said that the incident was a miscommunication. There had been multiple versions of De Niro's speech, and there was a desire to focus solely on the movie makers and their artistry, according to the source. So, yeah, I mean, at a movie awards, what you would hope to have is, a highlight of the film that's actually getting the awards and the actor, one of the big actors of that film talking about it a little bit. But, I mean, to modify the speech in a way that just completely removes anything that the person actually wanted to talk about is pretty not good. I'll just say that. Really, really not good. And Robert De Niro did get to have a chance to level his criticism, reading his remarks from his phone. So the teleprompter was edited. His phone, gotta love it, definitely still had it in him. He said what you would expect. I mean, he wanted to talk negatively about former President Donald Trump, and he was able to do so, saying, what you would expect. The former quote, the former president lied to us more than 30,000 times during his 4 years in office, and he's keeping up the pace in his current campaign of retribution. He was able to speak what he wanted to about former President Trump, and I respect that. I mean, it's a speech that he wrote involving award-winning, and to have it edited is pretty not good, as I said before. To say it in a way that, not sure how else to say it, but I'm glad he was able to say the speech he wanted to either way. Apparently, there was also been a bit of a situation involving Sean Diddy Combs, sexual assault lawsuits and whatnot. He's stepped aside as chairman of a music-oriented television network he co-founded in 2013, as it involves a sexual assault lawsuit. I don't want to talk about it too much. It's, of course, personal and very sensitive, but I'll talk a little bit about it. R&B singer Cassie accused Combs of sexually assaulting her over the course of a decade. I don't want to get this podcast censored or whatnot, or explicit rated. I'll just say, earlier this month this was reported. Her real name, Cassandra Ventura, previously recorded for Combs' Bad Boy record label. Just one day after the suit was filed, her and Combs reached a settlement. So, a lot has happened, and he's going to step aside from a network he co-founded. So this is all according to representatives confirming the news to Variety. So that's all I'll say about that. If you want to do your own research, you can gladly do so. It looks like the situation may have been at least mostly resolved, but you never know. Things could always come back around. Lifetime channel. Very interesting channel full of Christmas movies and, family content. Or so you may seem to think that. The network boss, in an exclusive with Variety, had comments on the fact that there's going to be the network's first sex scene in a Christmas movie. This season's, quote, It's a Wonderful Lifetime slate of 12 new movies includes what's called a cowboy Christmas romance, featuring the franchise's first sex scene. In a statement exclusively given to Variety, the SVP of scripted content at Lifetime said, Tia Magini said, we think that there's an audience out there that's hungry for grown-up romance, and we're looking forward to adding some smolder to the usual holiday sugar and spice. We love trying new things, and we're excited about this new first for us for a holiday movie. So the movie, a little detail on it, it follows a real estate who returns home to Arizona to reclaim land belonging to a rancher. Yeah, okay. I mean, it sounds like a typical movie, but I guess because it's the first time there's a sex scene in it is, I guess that's little things are heating up a little bit. I'm not in the audience or market for Lifetime Channel. I don't know when the last time I opened it, if I ever did purposely. Maybe just casually looking through on a TV guide, maybe. So, very interesting stuff. Hey, there's a first for everything, but wow, very interesting. Take that for what you will. And a little bit to end off the entertainment section, another fiasco involving Looney Tunes. Now, not too long ago, the Coyote versus Acme film was being pulled. Now, reportedly, it was being looked at with other third-party distributors, including, I think, Amazon. So there was a whole situation there, received a lot of backlash, and looks like Warner Bros. Discovery has, again, not realized how huge and important Looney Tunes as a whole is. In a Monday email titled What's New on Max this December, Warner Bros. Discovery listed Looney Tunes and the Looney Tunes Show, which I think is the one that was on Cartoon Network about a decade ago. Actually very well received, but I think only had like 2 seasons. I liked it growing up a little. I liked it a bit. It was a very weird take on Looney Tunes, but it overall, in my opinion, worked. And it was a shame that it only lasted for, I think, 2 seasons. Well, these were among the titles leaving Max on New Year's Eve this year. Looney Tunes is a signature franchise for Warner Bros. So, even though, with that being said, removing episodes of the cartoon from the Max service, even though I just said earlier, I'm going to keep Max a little longer because Hard Knocks is happening. Otherwise, I think I actually would have canceled it. I got very close. It's just Max, Warner Bros. They knew I was canceling it and decided, you know what, let's make Hard Knocks on the Miami Dolphins. Otherwise, I would have canceled it, especially after reading this. And the end of last year, Warner Bros. Discovery pulled seasons 16 to 31 of the show from, at the time, called HBO Max. And, of course, with the recently shelved Coyote versus Acme film, even though it's now reportedly being shopped around, it just seems like Warner Bros. Discovery just really doesn't know anything about Looney Tunes anymore. A few hours later, however, so this would be Monday night, late Monday night Eastern Time, the company announced that Looney Tunes' inclusion on the list of Max removals was apparently an error. In a revised version of the email sent, Warner Bros. Discovery said that, quote, Looney Tunes was included in error as a title leaving the platform. This is not the case, and the show will continue streaming on Max. I'm almost certain they had such a huge backlash yet again that they just, you know what? No, just keep it on there. Keep it on there. Even though I think that does mean half the show has already been removed from the end of last year, and I guess because there were still Looney Tunes content, people weren't really as upset about it. But of course, removing the rest of the Looney Tunes content, although some shows I think were still going to stay. I remember reading an article when this was all happening yesterday. It said, oh, but don't worry, some other shows that will be staying include Space Jam and Space Jam: A New Legacy. It's like, okay, well, the first one, yeah, cult classic. Second one, nowhere near as much. I saw both. I loved the first one. Still do. Second one, not nearly as much. Definitely felt more metaverse before the metaverse. And it was just flashy and tacky and not great. This wouldn't have been too surprising considering all of the content that's been removed from Max, including the fact that they just tried and almost successfully killed off a nearly complete Looney Tunes film that I'm certain, with the actors that were attached to it, I think including John Cena, could have been a hit, no matter where it would have played. But yeah, however, Looney Tunes actually has, from what I'm seeing here, there's still going to be one Looney Tunes loss. They removed Looney Tunes and the Looney Tunes show, I think, from the list, but the updated list still says that Looney Tunes Back in Action will be removed at the end of 2023. So Looney Tunes Back in Action being the sequel to Space Jam. That's very odd. Space Jam, New Legacy, and not the actual sequel, spiritual sequel, some similar characters to Space Jam, but that's still going to be removed. I think that was the film that, when that released, it was such a critical flop that I think that's what made Warner Bros. Had a full reevaluation of their animation, because I don't think they released an animated film from like this to the Lego Movie about a decade later. I think so. They completely did a lot of very strange things in that decade. And you can thank Back in Action for that. Back in Action, no longer in action. Missing in action. MIA. Dolphins. Let's go Dolphins. A little update on a big thing that I covered in my podcast episode last week. The whole fiasco with the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, being fired by the board, suddenly being put on to Microsoft. It was looking like he was probably going to stay there. Well, what are the odds? Almost a few hours after I released my episode last week. It was very, very, very early Wednesday. This article I'm reading here, literally the 22nd at 1:03 a.m., it was declared he would be returning as CEO of OpenAI, alongside the co-founder Greg Brockman, which I think I mentioned as well. The company said in a statement it has an, quote, agreement in principle, unquote, for Altman to return alongside a new board. People familiar with the negotiations said that the main job of this small initial board, as it does seem to be a smaller board, is to vet and appoint an expanded board of up to 9 people that will reset the governance of OpenAI. Microsoft, which has committed to investing billions in the company, wants to have a seat on that expanded board, as does Altman himself. The CEO earlier said the company didn't want any more, quote, surprises. An investigation was agreed to, reportedly, and yeah, big thing that was completely out of left field. Not him returning, although it was also as surprising, almost. But the whole fiasco involving Sam Altman being outed as CEO, not realizing Microsoft has given a lot into this company and then just gave him reportedly CEO of of some Microsoft division. I don't think anything was attached to his executive title just for a moment. I think he was just a CEO. I'm certain if this didn't happen, where Sam Altman would return, that Microsoft would have went all in on their own massive division, and then one day maybe just saying, screw it. The controversy surrounding this with OpenAI could have damaged the company beyond all doubt, and Microsoft could have just went and possibly acquired OpenAI. The value probably would have went very low without the poster man that is Sam Altman. But he has returned to OpenAI, and things can go back to business. Microtransactions are heading to cameras. Now, that is something you don't read every day, but it seems to be the case. This was announced earlier today, and while it may be an open situation, I don't see it being defied anytime soon. Sony Electronics announced a new custom gridline license for their Alpha 7 4i camera in March, along with more camera bodies in the future. I'm taking this from the press release that Sony released earlier. The date for the article is the 27th, but the press release is the 28th. So I'll just say within the past 24 hours. I think that's safe to say. A new license is the ability to import up to 4 customized original grid lines, a staple for professional cameras. Well, even though they've announced this, and it will obviously seem helpful for a lot of photographers that would have liked to have this before, when this launches, it's going to cost $149. That's right, a paywalled camera feature. Not a free update. Very, 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 very strange situation. A suggested retail price, so there is a chance this is going to be sold in stores. The ability to upgrade your camera through software that, in my opinion, should be free. It's grid lines. Customized grid lines, come on, Sony. I just recently bought one of your cameras. It was a really good sale, and I didn't buy it new either. But come on. Stop making yourself look greedy. Speaking of greedy, Black Friday, a big day of huge sales, even though they might not always be legitimate. I read about a TikTok. That sounds weird to say, but I read about a TikTok where, and of course I've seen it, that like Target was like messing with the sales in terms of things weren't actually as much of a sale as they were. Like some Black Friday deal for a TV wasn't actually a Black Friday sale, but they said it was. So Black Friday can always be a little controversial. And for some reason, Ubisoft, a video game publisher, decided, let's join in on the controversy accidentally. They had in-game ads in some of their Assassin's Creed titles involving sales with Black Friday. Ubisoft has since said this was, quote, the result of a technical error, unquote, and that they have apparently been fixed. Here's a little gist of it. Reports surfaced of players encountering pop-up adverts in-game for Assassin's Creed Mirage, which were released earlier this year. Reportedly, these were popping up while someone was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which released several years ago, and this was on the map screen of the game. So, very strange. Assassin's Creed Odyssey has released 2016, several years ago. And yeah, this was very scary, and wondering, is this the new precedent? But no. In a statement shared to Rock Paper Shotgun by a Ubisoft representative, Ubisoft, however you want to say it, they said, quote, "We have been made aware that some players encountered a pop-up ads while playing certain Assassin's Creed titles yesterday. This was the result of a technical error that we addressed as soon as we learned of this issue," unquote. So, there you go. Now, they actually did say a little bit more to Xitter, Xitter, saying, quote, "Our intention was to display a promotion for Assassin's Creed Mirage as part of the franchise news in the main menu of other Assassin's Creed games. Unfortunately, this technical error caused the promotion to appear in one of our in-game menus instead. We want to ensure the best player experience possible, blah, 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 and these disruptive pop-ups were promptly removed once we learned of this issue." And they also say they're going to investigate. This isn't the first time Assassin's Creed Odyssey apparently experienced a technical issue. In 2019, as reported by Kotaku, it was a bug. A Ubisoft representative told the site back then, and it was fixed. So this is not rare for game developers. 2K Games tried it with unskippable loading screen videos back with NBA 2K19. Sega and Sports Interactive's Football Manager offered free match site billboard space to mental health charities in 2020. At least then, it was for a good cause, consistent with the representation of virtual soccer. So, you could maybe respect that a little, at least. But, loading screen ads just in the menu of the game. Yeah, I'm glad they're saying that as an error, bug, because it could have, you never know. You always got to take the worst case scenario for-profit companies that, would love to make as much money as they can off of you. So, it could have always been, they tried this legitimately, seeing if there was any sort of backlash for the game that was several years old, and yeah, there was some backlash. So I'm glad they're seeing that this was stupid and that they're going to pull away from it. And just going to say it was a bug, so I don't anticipate seeing something like this happening again, at least anytime soon. Now, while I'm covering all of this, there is a big lawsuit going on right now, actually, that's going live, of Epic Games and Google. A few years ago, Fortnite was taken off the Google Play Store and Apple App Store when Fortnite or Epic Games tried to do something involving getting V-Bucks while circumventing Apple and Google's own payment method, where they were taking out a percentage from the sales, the transactions of V-Bucks. They were trying to circumvent it, and were saying, oh, now V-Bucks are cheaper, and promptly Apple and Google took the game off their app stores, and promptly Epic Games made an immediate massive lawsuit. For Apple, I think the whole situation is over, losses on both sides, and now it's Google's turn, which for some reason took a very long time. And it also seems like, I don't know how much of a one-sided situation this is going to be, because I think right now Fortnite is available on Samsung's App Store. So if you have a Samsung Galaxy smartphone like me, you can still get Fortnite on your beautiful little smartphone. And of course, because of the open nature of Android, you've been able to get the Epic Games launcher or whatever as a side-loaded app for Android. So this whole situation is going, but it's going right now. A lot is leaning in on, how much of an impact this made, the Galaxy Store situation, and yeah, sparks are flying for sure. Some highlights is at least one. Tim Sweeney laughed and agreed he'd love to make billions of dollars by not paying Google anything. Yeah, that's the perfect world, where you make 100% of what you make and that you're just freeloading off of servers. Now, I don't think 30% that I've been seeing is right, at least not anymore. But I mean, if you have a game on Epic Games Store, you're not getting 100% of your funding of what you make either. I think it's like 12% or 10%, still very low. I think Steam is 30%, or at least for the most part. I think if you make a smaller game or a larger game, one of those two, I know, very dividing, it's not 30%. It's up to a certain amount, I think it's 30%. But for Epic Game Store, it's like 12%. So, big fiasco, and I'll keep my eye on it. If there's any sort of more concise, condensed recaps, I will definitely talk about it, maybe write an article about it on my website, thefreshwire.com. I've been very busy, ironically, for Thanksgiving break past few days, so I haven't been able to write a whole lot. Apologize for that. But I do plan to get back into writing articles here and there, and I will definitely be covering some of these that I anticipate to cover in those articles in advance. So keep an eye out on that, thefreshwire.com. A little more onto tech, but of course not entirely tech. Phone cases. They're not tech, but they cover your tech. They cover it so that insurance isn't your last resort. It is a last resort that you don't have to worry about constantly. As phones get more fragile, phone cases become more valuable and more important. And there is a very big lawsuit going on with phone cases. Dbrand, who I actually have the console cover, not sure how to call it, and skin for my PlayStation 5, looks really nice. Really nice. I recommend it. They don't have the one I have anymore, I think, due to a lawsuit. But they're still pretty nice, and I recommend Dbrand. They're actually pretty solid quality. They are suing Casetify for ripping off its designs for Teardown. Now, if you don't know, Teardown, it was revealed in 2019 in partnership with a YouTuber, Zach Nelson, also known as Jerry Rig Everything. I watch his videos. Fantastic YouTuber. As he breaks down new devices, sometimes even giving them transparent mods. The teardown skins and cases make it look like you did the entire thing, taking the device apart, and you just gave it a transparent backing, even though it's just a skin or a case that you put onto it. They actually look pretty good. I've thought about getting them more than once for my... I don't have any, but they look really nice, especially like the Nintendo Switch one, a lot of the smartphone ones. They look pretty sick, especially when phone manufacturers, in the rare times that it happens, they put effort into the internals and how they look. So when you get that transparent design, it looks that much nicer. And a little bit of context, I actually watched the video about this by Jerry Rig Everything when it all came out, and I was a bit surprised. And, his evidence that showed that it was all being literally copied is pretty darning. Reference to Dbrand's online persona, Robot RO807, was seen on the Casetify cases when they were put in by Dbrand. So it's pretty clear that Casetify, with their inside-out cases, it not looking clear. I mean, it's all reported, and it's a lawsuit and everything, but their inside-out cases looked like they were taking almost directly, if not directly, from Dbrand, as they're still including all these references that Dbrand added to give a little bit of a flair, a little bit of a Charlotte flair for their cases. You saw that WWE reference? Yes, I do watch WWE. Yay, CM Punk's back. Okay. Sorry, I don't really cover that, but I did want to make that. That was a little funny. This apparent gaffe was posted on x/Twitter.com as Casetify looked to have recycled their design, and yeah, it's a whole fiasco. The cases, the inside-out cases, were reportedly were taken down, and that's why instead of a cease and desist order, Dbrand is hitting Casetify with a federal lawsuit in Canadian courts, as the company is based there seeking 8 figures in damages, because they were just... This wasn't just, going inside the phone and other hardware and, scanning it like Dbrand and Jerry Rig Everything did and, selling that. That's different. Competition is good, usually. But no, it seems like they really took the design directly from Dbrand rather than doing their own work and just reselling it. So that's, in the eyes of Dbrand, that's unacceptable, and that's why they did the lawsuit. In the eyes of me, of course, stealing this sort of hard work into scanning these devices so precisely and then selling it, that is unacceptable. That's awful. So, yeah. Pretty pretty big stuff, and I'll keep my eye on it because I love Jerry Rig Everything's content. Zach Nelson, great YouTuber, does a lot of good things for the right to repair movement and, cracking open into, tech that a lot of us may own and want, and just to see, how repairable they are and how durable they can be. Glass is glass, and glass can break, as he always says. And, I respect it, and I'll keep my eye on it. I think I'm going to be pretty biased on that, so I'm just going to preface there. Google Bard. AI. You got to love AI. You got to hate AI. You got to, feel everything about AI, and sometimes you just want to feel nothing about AI. But, of course, I do like talking about AI, artificial intelligence, here and there because of how much it's growing, and it is growing very quickly. And, of course, ChatGPT and Bing's AI, which I think is now called Microsoft Copilot. I think I talked about it before. Well, there's always competition, and Google Bard is one of those competitors. And I'm, just a little bit, because I like having AI here and there and everywhere. Google Bard can now watch YouTube videos for you. The AI chatbot has some sort of integration, sort of extensions that surround Google's services, and now that includes YouTube. It can handle complex queries about specific things in videos, like quantities that are in recipes and summaries of instructions that may be laid out in videos itself rather than just the description. I can see that someone asked about something involving a YouTube video, and they gave a summary and a specific thing that happened as a key point in the video. So, hey, even less reason to dive into YouTube videos. AI chatbots really are something else. I'm impressed that it happened now, in the past year or so, and not a while ago, because of how much content has been building up on the internet thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's just everything is so much more online than before. So an AI chatbot that reads all this data and read all of it and said, all right, here you go. Here it all is, all at once. And also images were scanned. So here's DALL-E and Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and all those other options to create AI-generated images. It's just all there. It's just all there. Now you got to wonder, when is it going to happen that AI-generated content that people are utilizing are going to be fed right into this AI database, large language model? I think it's called LLM. You never know. I mean, I think it's going to happen soon. And I'll be excited for that because I don't know how it's going to happen, because now people are utilizing AI-generated content, creating their own things, AI-assisted content, maybe not double-checking, fact-checking their sources, and, could it be a disaster waiting to happen? Tune in next week or the week after. A new film camera seems to finally be on its way after an announcement nearly 8 years ago by Kodak. It's a Super 8 film camera due to release, reportedly, next month. It was announced way back in CES 2016, and Kodak seems to finally be getting ready to sell it thanks to a new product page for the camera with a new, quote, sign up to buy button, allowing potential customers to register their interest. Keeping in mind, it's a Super 8 film camera. Film cameras are not cheap, and this one is no exception to the rule. It's going to cost a whopping $5,495. Ooh, Nelly. Expensive compared to the previously announced pricing when Kodak said in 2016 they wanted to charge between $400 to $750 for it. For a film camera, that is extremely cheap. 2018, they increased the potential price to $2,500 to $3,000. So clearly something happened on the way from early 2016 to now that made Kodak just completely go absolute nutso and make the price a painful one to look at. It's set to release, according to a statement to The Verge, it's set to release December 4th in limited quantities in the U.S. It will, in the coming time, release in Canada, UK, and other European markets. So, of course, this, price point makes it extremely niche. It's going to have a 4-inch LCD viewfinder, nice little screen, make it a little digital. You can record it onto a micro SD card, not that great. And even a micro HDMI output. Good luck with that. Micro HDMI or mini HDMI, awful compared to the full fat port. And for something that costs this much, that is pretty ridiculous, especially when it's very niche. The camera's charging port, something very important. My camera that I got that didn't release not that long ago, USB Type-C, phenomenal port. It's now in iPhones. It's in almost everything except for some reason Apple's mouse for their iMacs. Still can't get over that. I don't know if I ever will. USB Type-C is in a lot of things. The codec Super 8 film camera is not one of them. It's going to be using micro USB. Fantastic. Micro USB. You hate it. You don't love it. Very old, ancient port that was in a lot of early Android phones, and it was used for a while. There wasn't USB Type-C or anything. Around 2016 or so, it finally became more of a port to put onto phones. Compared to micro USB, Type-C is just so much better. So much better than almost every other port. I can't think of one that's worse. Or better, sorry. Micro USB is definitely worse, and it's pretty embarrassing. In 2016, it would have made a little bit more sense, but I mean, there are very few things I use nowadays that use micro USB. Unfortunately, the microphone I record with, the Shure MV7, uses micro USB. Very embarrassing. But it has that XLR port, so, it's future-proof in a way if I want to upgrade anything involving my setup. So there is a reservation form. And for anyone that may be a little curious but haven't shot on real film before, 404 Media notes that one Super 8 film cartridge can only shoot roughly 2.5 minutes of 24 frames per second footage. So like cinematic. Movies are generally 24 frames per second, or at least close to it. That cartridge is $35. 2.5 minutes. So if you're interested, be a little careful and be concise on where you're going to be shooting your footage. Ending off the tech section a little bit, there was a big fiasco that happened with YouTube and ad blockers that seems to be continuing to put forward. Again, I haven't actually seen that pop up. I've been testing out ad blocking, just to test out for YouTube videos, and I haven't seen it happen. So I don't know if it's the options that are out there that are just phenomenal against this measure or not. But one drawback out of the many that was affecting non-Google Chrome users, Firefox users, it was reportedly slowing down being able to open videos. A noticeable 5-second delay that looks to have been intentional was popping up for people that are using Mozilla's Firefox browsers, occasionally others, just none that were Google Chrome. YouTube has told The Verge that the users were correct about the delay, but the browser has nothing to do with it. Rather, it's part of the efforts to end ad blocking use across all platforms. Although for some reason it was affecting a big Chrome competitor, although reportedly users online said that they were seeing the delay in Chrome and Edge too. It just seemed to have been initially reported targeting Firefox users, but it would have been very weird that it was targeting a specific browser. Of course, due to browser agents, little technical know-how, but websites are technically able, at least sometimes, to see what kind of browser you're using, whether you're using Firefox, Chrome, or Edge, or whatnot. That's why sometimes when you open like an older browser and you're on Google.com, it'll tell you, oh, this browser is not efficient or the best for Google. You could try out Google Chrome. Like, it knows you're not on Chrome. A little more complicated when you're using a browser that uses the same base as Chrome, like Microsoft Edge. But that's a whole other topic. In an email, YouTube Communications Manager Christopher Lawton said in the past week, users using ad blockers may have experienced suboptimal viewing, which included delays in loading regardless of the browser they are using. He also wrote that disabling the ad blocker should resolve the issue, though users, quote, may still experience a temporary delay in loading, unquote, until their browser has refreshed. So users who have examined the code appears because of the delay see that there is no indication YouTube checks what kind of browser is in use. The senior brand manager for Mozilla wrote an email that, quote, there's no evidence that this is a Firefox-specific issue. And, of course, this delay isn't affecting everyone. As far as I know, I don't think I've had the problem affected to me. I don't use Firefox, but I was using Chrome for a while, and recently I swapped over to Microsoft Edge, and I haven't seen any. Again, all the problems that are popping up with ad blocking, I have not been noticing. So take that for what you will. I'm not admitting that I use ad blocking for YouTube. I just have been testing it out. And, yeah, really big situation that they're saying should be less of a problem over time as they look into other ways to detect ad blocking. Very, Awkward stuff, though. What would also be a little awkward is, for some people, dedicating yourself to opening up an adults-only Nintendo 64 app. Now, if that sounds a little confusing, let me explain a little bit. In Japan, Nintendo is set to release an adults-only version of its Nintendo 64 Switch Online app. Now, Nintendo Switch Online has 2 tiers. One of them includes being able to play more retro games, including ones for the NES, I think SNES, and Game Boy. But they have a higher tier that I think includes what they call the expansion pack, Nintendo 64 support included, in Game Boy Advance, I think. In Japan, there's more of a stickier situation with age rating requirements, and that includes 2 games that are set to soon release or are releasing now for Nintendo Switch Online: GoldenEye 007 and Jet Force Gemini. They were both rated Z in Japan, which means that they're actually banned from sale to any person under the age of 18. It's the only CERO rating regulated by the Japanese government and requires titles to be displayed separately from other software and age verification upon purchase. So as a result, these titles won't be able to appear alongside other more kid-friendly or lower, less restricted ratings by the CERO in Japan. This is not really a problem in West or the US specifically. GoldenEye 007 was added to Switch Online earlier this year in the US and did not release, it seems like, until now for Japan alongside Jet Force Gemini. They're set to release November 30th. It seems like, I guess, the Japanese arm for Nintendo, the big boy one, likely held back due to the fact that this regulation would be affecting these 2 games. Now, for Jet Force Gemini, it will be releasing in December. A set date has yet to be confirmed. So, interesting stuff. Can't think of anything similar in the US because this is a very, Japanese thing. And yeah, that's all there is to that. Now, a little bit on Destiny 2 for Destiny 2 gamers by Bungie, now owned by Sony. Just want to put that out there. In recent months, Destiny 2 has gotten into a lot of backlash and heat due to how they've been laying off their employees reportedly and how they've been slowing down a little bit on their content, their expansion. And now they just confirmed that they're delaying their next expansion, The Final Shape, into June next year. So a big delay for Destiny 2. Usually these expansions come with a boatload of content and updates short-term and long-term after. The Final Shape, however, is an ambitious expansion meant to conclude the Light and Darkness saga of Destiny, the game itself. Very little has been shown about the expansion so far, and this, of course, has been a big delay for the expansion just not too long after 8% of employees were laid off, and this takes place after there were negative reviews and player sentiment following the previous expansion, Lightfall. So a lot of hot water is boiling over for Destiny 2. Are they going to get out of it and resolve themselves? I don't know. I got into Destiny 2 for just a little bit. I didn't buy anything. It's free to play, and I figured it was all right. There's some content here and there, but of course it is very grindy at some points and not very enjoyable as a result. If you're not into grinding, then not a good one to get into. Now, that ends off the video game section. Like I said, not a whole lot of news has actually happened. A lot happened Wednesday last week. Go figure. Seems like that always happens. Something big traditionally happens Tuesday, right before I record my podcast, and then the following day. Not as much in this case, although, of course, the Sam Altman OpenAI CEO fiasco was probably the worst one yet, happening 1 a.m., literally 2 or 3 hours after I recorded my podcast and uploaded and published it. So not a whole lot there. Now, of course, I'm going to have a small futurology section here because, again, not a lot has happened, but this could be a big one that could indicate things in the future. Australia, it involves that country/continent. They will be banning imports of disposable vapes starting January in an attempt to curb nicotine addiction in children. I'm taking this from an article from BBC. A new law that will stop Single-use vapes from being made, advertised, and supplied in the country is also set to be introduced, coming as a broader push to phase out recreational vaping completely. So, yeah, this is, of course, a very big deal. It's not known, though, not enough is known yet about the long-term impacts of vaping, but of course, this is a very big import ban that could very well affect some industries that are taking advantage of this in Australia. It's set to start New Year's Day, and by March, refillable non-therapeutic vapes will also be banned from entering the country. So, the practice has been linked to chronic lung disease and asthma, according to research from Johns Hopkins University, and it comes just days after New Zealand's government scrapped its world-leading smoking ban to pay for tax cuts. Yeah, so how much of this will affect the U.S. and other countries has yet to be seen, but Australia's pretty big. When they do something, it's possible, if not likely, that it affects a lot of other countries, especially, like larger ones that have more of an impact when they do something with the world. Australia's up there, in my opinion. So, of course, it's futurology because, this could be an indicator that vaping overall could start to be phased out as it's looking to be the next big thing for smoking, but also teenagers are starting to get into it even when it's been illegal, I think, for teenagers. It's the equivalent of smoking. Smoking under 18, I think, has always been illegal, I think in the U.S. I don't know off the top of my head. And vaping has been no exception, but teenagers, due to how vaping is very popular, teenagers have gotten into it. A study from the University of Sydney earlier this year found over a quarter of teenagers between ages 14 to 17 had vaped, while research from Australia's Cancer Council charity found that 9 out of 10 in the same age group found it easy to access nicotine vapes. So, of course, a very big problem. I wouldn't be surprised if in the U.S. it's not that far off. So could this be something that could impact other countries? Obviously, too early to say. This is very new information. This article was released yesterday, not even 24 hours ago. So, how much of this will impact the world, yet to be seen, but it is definitely something to keep in mind for the future. And it could one day impact us all. There you go. I grabbed it all in. Big clutch from my part. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it one last time for listening to my episodes. And yeah, I hope, again, everyone had a good Thanksgiving and Cyber Week sales. Now we're heading into the big old holiday season of Christmas, if you will, Hanukkah and whatnot. And then we'll be ending off the year. So, yeah, pretty exciting stuff. 2024 is set to go into motion. And, of course, that does mean it's going to be a lot harder for me to weed through the gutter that is politics, as I'm certain it's going to involve entertainment and tech, as I read near the beginning, a speech being censored involving comments against former President Trump. And it's gonna get harsher. It's gonna get deeper. And one way or another, I think I'm gonna have to start talking about it a little bit more. But of course, I'll try to keep things as neutral as I can. With that being said, thank you all one last time. Be on the lookout for episodes releasing every Tuesday evening, Tuesday night. I don't know if I'm gonna be more consistent with these earlier releases, but either way, thanks for listening. I'll catch you all around in the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. And have a gosh darn good one. Stay safe, and I'll see you around. Peace.